Girls of Reddit, what's the hardest part of being a girl? Periods, especially if you have really bad cramps. I have endometriosis and it causes horrifyingly painful cramps. I swear some nights I wanted to throw up from how much it was hurting. Being expected to nicely laugh off pervs who won't stop hitting on you. I'm not a buzzkill. Some dude sees me out with the girls, doesn't notice the wedding ring and chats me up, either work my husband into the convo or if he's being more direct, sorry I'm taken. No harm, no foul. But leaning in and telling me about how naughty in bed he thinks I am, all the things he wants to do to me, etc. Then I'm the bad guy for telling him he's disrespectful? I get annoyed with the sex part sometimes. I feel like my body is so stupidly complicated at times with what it likes and wants in order to reach orgasm. I wish the vagina was as consistent and simple as dicks. Time of the month. But the thing is, if we don't get one, then we would probably think, oh crap, am I pregnant? We just can't win. And no, we can't hold it in like urine, it just blobs out. Why are women's clothing so tight-fitted, and also the non-existent pockets in pants? Dave look. I haven't had a kid, but having seen my friends go through pregnancy and childbirth, yet I'm gonna say having a kid. 9 months of carrying a baby around while it leaches off your body and your hormones go crazy. Then, unless you're one of the lucky ones with an easy birth, you go into the hospital and tear yourself apart pushing a baby out to the point you have to wear diaper-sized pads in the weeks following as all the afterbirth finishes clearing itself out of your system. And this is happening while you are caring for your newborn and dealing with things like breastfeeding. Plus you get postpartum hormones while you're surrounded by well-meaning friends and family members that will give you unwanted care tips, as well as making you feel like you're not a good mother because you may not have immediately bonded with your kid, etc. Like, damn man. And in all these centuries of scientific progress, they have come up with decent ways to make giving birth easier, like epidurals. But the same basic concept of pregnancy and having the baby is the same as it was centuries or even thousands of years ago. I've heard being a woman makes it more difficult to be a fan of anything considered a boy/man's hobby. Basically, if you're a fan of video games, comics, or cars, then you'll experience a bunch of gatekeeping attitudes from the guys also in those worlds. How much have you experienced that? When you pee and the outer labias get in the way, and you end up having like 3 different streams of piss, and one of them ends up being just the right angle to drip on the outside of the toilet. Being friendly to a guy and having it taken as romantic or sexual interest. Being dismissed as emotional or dramatic when you are genuinely going through a hard time or want to speak out about something. Literally not being able to have a friend that's a guy without people thinking we're dating. It's even worse because I'm gay and a lot of the time guys will just be like, but you just haven't met the right one. Having to be overly cautious when walking alone, even when walking in my complex parking lot. Sometimes I wish I could go for a run at night or walk in the city. Having "are you on your period" be used as reason to dismiss all of my feelings. And generally being talked down to by a lot of guys. Lack of upper arm strength. Professionally, being spoken over and it being assumed I'm not the one with the power in the room. The guy sitting next to me is my employee, not the other way around. I am also not the assistant/receptionist/record keeper of my company. I am the big boss lady and I deserve to be treated as such. Personally, Finding a great bra that isn't super $. People being immediately dismissive of your ability to doing something simply because of your genitals. I once had someone tell me I shouldn't be putting together a desk I purchased. They said I should let my BF do it. Also, the price of feminine hygiene products. Everyone else already mentioned the obvious period cramps, but I'll add people thinking it's okay to touch you without your permission, and if you state your boundaries and say please don't touch me, people will think you're a bitch, because women and girls are trained to be nice, and standing up for yourself goes against that. I think the over-sexualizing of my body just as it was developing. I received more comments and was touched and harassed by boys my age who didn't know any better. Like we aren't 7 or 8 anymore, it's not okay to wrestle with me and be aggressive just so you can grab my body parts in an unassuming manner. The straight up comments about how large my chest was when half the other girls barely had a cups. It was a lot to deal with when for all of my life that was a non-issue. I had to accept these changes, and then others used these changes to either hurt me emotionally or take advantage of me. It made me wear bigger clothes to hide my body, but I was already chunky and my mom seemed to not understand I wasn't going to fit into smaller sizes just because she did. Also, my mom refused to spend the money on proper bras for my sister and I until she was embarrassed by a family member for not taking her chesty daughters to get proper bras. We were wearing sports bras much longer than we should have been for how large our chests were. End cups. The guilt and pressure of living in a society that overwhelmingly requires a 2-income household to support a family but places the vast majority of child care and household demands on the woman's shoulders. Oh, and we're taught from a young age to be pretty and polite and don't complain too much, to the extent that we will put ourselves in harm's way despite our better judgment for fear of coming off as impolite. Fuck that. The frustration of balancing being assertive with not being that bitch in the workplace. I want my ideas heard. I want to be respected. I want to be considered fairly for promotions and leadership positions. But if I do twice as much work as my male co-workers, I get half the credit, and if I point out my accomplishments, I have to soften them, or else I'm being a bragging bitch while my male co-workers can take unabashed credit for their accomplishments all day. The fact is that men can take up space and own their confidence and accomplishments in a way that women will be punished for. It's incredibly frustrating to try to succeed professionally when the person in charge of promotions gives me the side eye for talking about this new thing I did, and they just smile and nod when a man does the same thing. Painful boobs. Our emotions are regularly used against us, invalidating our points or say in a matter. They are also heavily judged as well. Our concern in how something affects us is often not a concern. For example, if one didn't mean to offend, I am in the wrong for being offended. Or should pay little mind as I'm just being emotional. Weight fluctuation. The fact that my sweatshirt cost as much as my male roommates, but is like 4 times thinner. What the fuck? Never being taken seriously. Not with how I feel, not my pain, none of it. Everything I do there must first be a fight to be taken seriously. Wanting to look masculine/tomboyish but you can't because you have a big ass. The Dementors. Trying to explain about how some parts of our lives are tough because of our gender and then being told, well, what about this tough part about being a male? Edit. I think part of the problem is that people aren't taught how to sympathize and support others without inserting themselves into the issue. Instead of saying something like, "Oh yeah, that happens to my group all the time." Maybe say something like, "That's terrible and should never happen." If you're curvy, definitely the hardest part is finding clothes that fit perfectly. Most of them are too big or too small, or they don't fit your thighs but fit your waist, things like that. Period cramps. Feels like someone is trying to chainsaw their way out of your body. Being called a girl when you're a 30-year-old grown woman. People immediately thinking you're stupid. Not being able to walk around alone without fearing for my safety. I am a computer science major. I build PCs, program, do game dev, all kinds of stuff. I also used to be on a FIRST robotics team. Basically, I know my way around tech. Every single time I go into a Fry's or Micro Center with any male person, even if they do not speak or show any interest in what is going on, employees talk to them. As in, I ask a question, the employee answers to my male friend. So annoying. As a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, being stereotyped is my biggest problem with people. Please don't immediately assume I'm an innocent VSCO girl. You can avoid stereotypes and learn more about the person before judging. Periods. We honestly can't stop blood coming out when it's time for it to happen. It's not like having to hold urine in your body. Having big boobs. Some men, and women who are interested in women, will stare and compliment how big my boobs are and will try to fucking grab them, and the same thing with asses. I didn't want and still don't want big boobs and a big ass. As a woman currently studying for a STEM degree, the belittling, patronizing, and mansplaining is super annoying. It's hard to voice my opinions or ideas when they get dismissed. It's even better when one of my male peers says the same thing, or phrases it slightly differently, and gets commended for it. Like, "I just said that." Another super annoying part of it is even when I accomplish something. For instance, I was recently accepted into a difficult to get internship program. It's dismissed by my male peers because they just want diversity. One of my best friends worked super hard to get a prestigious internship, and her boyfriend told her must be nice to be handed things because you're a woman. Sure, it wasn't because she's at the top of her class and works insanely hard, it's cause she's got 2 X chromosomes. Nice. For me, other than the fatigue and nausea during Werewolf Week, PMS, I'd have to say my experience when I want to take precautions for not having kids. I've never wanted to be a mother. Felt this way for a long time. Thankfully my mom completely understood and knew this ever since I was a kid. Couldn't get a hysterectomy because I was too young. Even in my 30s doctors have told me this. Still trying to find a doctor who will completely understand my choices. I can't take the normal birth control pill because of the hormones. Well, obviously can't have any form of birth control with hormones. The one that doesn't has severe side effects, as well as battling the insurance company to get it. I either get looked at with pity or with confusion, because apparently it's unheard of that a woman doesn't want to physically have kids, but doesn't hate kids either. It's very disheartening. Thankfully I have a good support system with the people I care about and so who is willing to talk with me about the little options we have. Cramps, non-existent pockets, more expectations for looks, being thought of as overdramatic and weak. And my mom complaining because I'm a tomboy, and that I should like things I don't like because all girls like shopping and this type of clothes and that type of shoes and makeup. I'm not trying to be quirky and not like other girls or anything, it's just not my thing, and I don't bash on or not understand anyone who does like those things. I just hate having it all attempted to be forced on me just because I'm female. Periods. It's like punishment for not being pregnant. Oh well. I just had to change careers because all my jobs on TraViews were pretty shitty all due the area and me being a woman. One time this guy, HR, just asked me if my favorite hobby was to sew or cooking. Maybe it's just my country, but oh god, I wish I'd graduated in butt kicking just to have a license to beat the hell out of these guys. Having to justify why we're terrified of walking alone or going for a run by ourselves. I've already read a comment where the woman had to give specific examples of her feeling unsafe and people she knows in unsafe positions. Is it not enough to be sacred that we now have to write an essay for you on why we might feel that way? I'm sick of that homeless guy is harmless because literally everyone is harmless until they're not. So if a girl asks you to walk her to her car because she's scared, don't be a dick and do that small favor so that she can feel safe. If a girl asks you to watch her drink, actually watch it and make sure no one messes with it. Assume that she has good reasons to be scared and don't make her feel bad because of it. Having to be twice as good to make people you believe you're as good. Not being included in things because of your gender. Being judged purely on physical appearance. Not being taken seriously for medical issues. It's all either in my head or hormones. Seriously. Had tests showing nerve damage and obvious muscle weakness, but my arm pain was in my head because the docs couldn't put a label on it. Shit like that. Currently pursuing career in STEM, so the whole concept of not being taken seriously is extremely difficult in a field more male-dominated. It puts more pressure for us to work hard because people would judge us first glance, and not consider what we have to say. Female scientists, mathematicians, and engineers have experienced it countless times. We all work hard to be where we are. Why should my sex influence whether I can or cannot contribute to the world? At night wondering, is that a shadow or a guy following me while I walk my dog? The first thing people think about for female is beauty. Not intelligence, not bravery, not power. Outward beauty. One of the most subjective, fleeting, and hard to achieve things a person could strive for. You can have a PhD, you could be a veteran, you could be president and have those things basically permanently. But beauty is something someone can disagree with, and it fades quickly. Especially if you are only beautiful because of added makeup, nice hairdo, or a well-fitted dress. Gender roles. I fucking hate cleaning just as much as a stereotypical guy does, so why should I be expected to do it? I have no desire to cook for myself or anyone else, despite being somewhat good at it. No one likes folding laundry. So how did that become my job? I shouldn't be burdened with domestic work, on top of my actual job, simply because I have a vagina. Being sexualized / fear of being r**ped. If I'm walking somewhere and I see a guy walking towards me, I either cross the street or pretend to be on the phone with someone. I keep my nails long as hell for self-defense. In cabs I always pull out pieces of my hair at the root so my DNA will be left behind. If I'm alone with a guy I always scoot as far away as I can and I keep my legs crossed tight. I've been catcalled and grabbed at and guys have made the grossest comments towards me and other guys I know, including my own brother, always try to convince me that I'm overdramatic and it's never as bad as I'm making it seem. It is. I'm tired of always being on alert, but I can't relax because I never know if this guy on the street is going to be another normal guy or if he's the one who will grab me and drag me somewhere to force himself on me. Advocating for yourself in a male-oriented environment. I see this all the time where we are taught to be in the background and be quiet even if we may disagree. Periods. Period. Having the shittiest toys growing up. Yeah, not all girls wanna have a tea party or play dress up with them Barbie dolls. Oh, having to hold my phone cause my pockets aren't deep enough or don't even exist. Generally, not being seen as all the way human. It often gets discussed, the feeling of being dehumanized through objectification and the dangers of creeps, but it hardly ever is discussed the disrespect that men feel like they can allocate to you if they don't find you attractive. I'm talking in work settings, in friend groups. I can't tell you how many times that happened where a guy went out of his way to let me know my appearance wasn't up to his standards in some way when I wasn't even attempting to engage him in any way, let alone flirt. But it's so much more than snide comments. It's being shown that your ideas, your friendship, everything you have to offer is ultimately useless if you don't look right. I've experienced both ends of the spectrum of being conventionally attractive and not so conventionally attractive, and both versions suck. Misunderstanding, when guys think that I fell in love with him, but I'm just being nice. The mere fact that I'm taking up physics and engineering in uni, makes them underestimate me. While taking up the said programs are quite normal for women in our country, we have a few international students and well, a lot of classmates who've underestimated me more than once. Little did they know that I'm fluent in 4 languages. And I ranked 8th in our department overall last semester. An unexpected period in public places or at work. The pressure of always looking beautiful. Pregnancy. Probably when a guy I previously dated doubted my ability to get through Navy boot camp because I'm a female. P. O. C. K. E. T. S. Having people, especially older men, believe what you say / take you seriously. Perhaps not all girls, but a lot of little and teenage girls don't get taken seriously. Every time we try to express what we're feeling, our interests, opinions, etc., it gets downplayed, brushed aside, or ignored. Especially if you're a girl. Sometimes you internalize that what you have to say is not important and don't speak up often or over-explain yourself, and sometimes you turn into a really defensive person, and either way you get socially penalized. It takes a lot to unlearn second-guessing everything you think and say. I may be a bit late to the party, but honestly, how a good portion of media portrays women. Has it gotten better over years? Yes. Is some of it blatant pandering? Yes. Is it ever going to change completely? Without being cynical, I honestly doubt it. The male gaze is nothing new. Women are sexually objectified. That's why we are scared of walking alone. That's why we are trained at a young age to be nice and polite. I feel like a good chunk of media through the decades and our own cultures dictate how we are seen. My boyfriend is a screenwriter, and I've commented that his own movies featuring women are used mostly as sex objects or as a tool for the male protagonist's own character growth. It's not to say that he is sexist or doesn't support women's rights objectively, but when writing, that's just how he writes women. He is not a woman, so he doesn't understand always how to write for them, so stick to what you know through other sources. It used to be rare I could find a film or TV series where female leads were single mothers, older than their 20s, into hobbies other than fashion or hip trends, etc. Not to say that there is anything wrong with things that are generally associated with the female gender, but it's disheartening that we are now slowly making this shift that hey, women like things other than men, taking care of kids, being pretty. Long story short, women in media such as film and television can be used for more than just pretty sexual objects who only further the white male protagonist's own character development. Not feeling safe. For me personally, it's periods. I have PCOS, which already leads to very painful cramps, and without medications it's also very irregular, and I also get extremely depressed that time of the month, as well as having cyclical migraines. Thing is, I already have periodic depression, so sometimes if I'm really unlucky I can be at the end of a depression only to get my period and get thrown right into another one. Sometimes I'm very lucky and my period doesn't affect my mood too much, but that's extremely rare. People expect me to be emotional and social. I'm shy, barely express emotion, and suck at conversation. So they assume I'm stuck up, or that I'm not interested, etc. All the comments on your appearance, whether positive or negative, people feel free to discuss women's bodies in a way you wouldn't encounter with men. Unless we're romantically involved, please keep your thoughts on our bodies to yourselves. For me it's between being dismissed as emotional, incompetent, or dramatic, or generally being fearful for my safety while walking home, hiking alone, doing things in remote areas. Also, guys sometimes say really creepy stuff to us, often without realizing they are being creepy/scaring us. These are often linked because when I mention to someone that I was scared or nervous in a situation, I am often told I am just being dramatic. An actual example, this guy from work pretty regularly informed me about all the sex he had, women he has dated, etc., and goes into way more detail than I want. Makes me uncomfortable, but I only see him in the office and we don't work together that much, so I mostly just try to avoid him. One night several of us work really late on a project and grab a drink at a bar after work. He has a few more than one drink. He's not wasted, but he is visibly tipsy. We all leave and he insists on walking me home. I've ran into him at the grocery store and such before, so he knows I live in the same general vicinity as him. I say no thank you. Dude is insisting on walking me home. Will not take no for an answer. I keep trying to decline. Eventually, I have to make up some lie about going to my friend's house in a different area of the city instead. I take a detour and then circle back around and head home. When I mentioned to a friend who was at our app when I got home that it took me an extra hour to get home because I was trying to avoid this drunk guy who talks to me way too much about his sex life from knowing where I lived, he thought that was very overdramatic of me. Being prey to men. Not all men obviously, but from a very young age most women are taught to fear strange men and to always be on the lookout. We are treated like prey animals by society, taught to be so, because some men may try to harm us. Ask any woman what they do daily to prevent sexual assault or being kidnapped, and nearly everyone will give you an answer right away. Do that with a guy, and most won't even have thought about it. It's actually terrifying to grow up thinking any man you see could potentially kidnap you. If you're a woman who doesn't want kids, you just haven't realized your biological clock is ticking, you'll change your mind. And my favorite, you're incredibly selfish / you're obligated to have them because your parents raised you. There's also the fact it's almost impossible for us to get a tubal ligation unless we've already had 2 or more kids, because you'll change your mind, or we can't do this without your boyfriend's / husband's consent. Basically anything that involves taking control of our own bodies because of some societal BS. Pregnancy, childbirth, and in my case the horrific aftermath on my body. Men don't take your emotions seriously. Also, men never believe me when I notice something mechanical like a noise in my car. Just once I'd like a man to just accept me at my word. They don't second guess each other, but assume all women exaggerate about everything. It doesn't even matter if I am a literal expert in something. Some dude with no experience will second guess my observations. The worst part is once they are willing to agree there is a problem, they always take credit for figuring it out. No men are exempt from infantilizing women. Men who think they are woke feminists do it too. Cramps. I get painful ones. I throw up and sometimes have to call in sick. Pretty much everything in our society. But what drives me bonkers is how differently I get treated if I spend tons of time, effort and money, and sometimes pain, to look pretty. Makeup, hair, waxing, manicures, cute clothes, expensive skin products, accessories. It's all fucking stupid. And the difference is night and day despite I'm the same fucking person. Arg. For about 3 days a month, 2 weeks before / after my period I look hot AF. My boobs look good, my skin is beautiful, my hair is shiny, my face just looks better. The rest of the time, I don't look like that. I then compare my normal self to the person I see during those 3 days and get really insecure when I'm not ovulating. Also pockets.